Imagine winning the bloodiest war in human history, only to plant the seeds for an even worse one? That's exactly what happened in 1919, when world leaders gathered in a lavish French palace to end all wars. Instead, they wrote the script for the next one. This is the Treaty of Versailles, the peace deal that detonated like a time bomb 20 years later. Picture this. It's June 1999. The Great War is finally over. Europe is shattered, millions dead, cities in ruins, entire empires gone. The German Kaiser has fled, and people everywhere are desperate for peace. So, in the glittering halls of Versailles, the victors, Britain, France, the US, and their allies, meet to decide the future of the world. But here's the catch. Germany isn't really invited to the party. They're told to wait outside, and when they're finally called in, it's not to negotiate. It's to sign. From the very start, this peace conference feels more like a reckoning. France's Georges Clemenceau wants revenge. He's seen his country invaded twice in 50 years. Britain's David Lloyd George is walking a tightrope, balancing public fury at Germany with the fear of pushing them too far. And then there's Woodrow Wilson, the idealist American president who arrives with his grand plan for a fair, lasting peace built on democracy and self-determination. Wilson calls it his 14 points. But Clemenceau famously sneers, the good Lord only had 10. The mood inside Versailles is tense, emotional, almost theatrical. Everyone's smiling for the cameras, but behind those gold leaf doors, the knives are out. Germany, stripped of its monarchy and pride, is about to be hit with a treaty that feels less like peace and more like punishment. They lose 13% of their land, all of their colonies, and, crucially, their army is slashed to just 100,000 men. No tanks, no planes, no submarines. And then comes the real gut punch, the war guilt clause. Article 231. It declares Germany, and Germany alone, responsible for the entire war. That means they have to pay reparations, an astronomical sum that would cripple their economy for decades. Even some Allied economists warned this would ruin Germany, and maybe Europe with it, but no one listens. When the German delegates finally see the terms, they're horrified. One of them says, "This is not peace. It is a 20-year armistice." And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Now pause and think about that. The war had destroyed millions of lives, and instead of healing the wounds, the treaty poured salt into them. Inside Germany, humiliation turns to bitterness. Soldiers returning from the front, men who'd survived the trenches, feel betrayed. They start believing the myth that Germany wasn't defeated, but stabbed in the back by politicians, bankers, and revolutionaries. That lie becomes the perfect fuel for a certain angry veteran with a tiny mustache and a gift for rage-filled speeches. Adolf Hitler reads the treaty and finds his mission in life: tear it apart. Meanwhile, across Europe, Wilson's dream of a fair peace collapses. His League of Nations, meant to keep the world together, has no real power. The US doesn't even join. France builds defenses, Britain looks away, and Germany sinks deeper into chaos. By the early 1920s, hyperinflation is so bad that German kids are playing with stacks of worthless money. Bread costs billions. Life savings vanish overnight. Then the Great Depression hits and everything crumbles again. And in that despair, Hitler's promises to restore pride, rebuild the army, and undo Versailles start sounding less like madness and more like salvation. That's the brutal irony of Versailles. It was supposed to make the world safer, but it trapped Germany in a corner, humiliated and hopeless, until war felt like the only way out. And here's the thing, not everyone wanted it that way. Some leaders warned this would backfire. John Maynard Keynes, the British economist at the conference, quit in disgust and wrote The Economic Consequences of the Peace, predicting exactly what would happen. He said the treaty would starve the children of Germany, and that no civilization could survive such anger. He was right. So, when Hitler tore up the treaty in the 1930s, rearming, marching into the Rhineland, annexing territory, the world acted shocked. But, honestly, the time bomb had been ticking since 1919. It's strange, isn't it? How something meant to prevent war can make it inevitable. Versailles wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a mirror, reflecting the pride, fear, and vengeance that still haunted Europe after the guns went silent. By the time the next war erupted in 1939, many of the men who had stood in those marble halls of Versailles were gone. But their words, their compromises, their anger, all of it, echoed across those 2 lost decades. So the next time someone tells you World War II began with the invasion of Poland, tell them it really started in a palace outside Paris. With ink instead of bullets, with signatures instead of bombs, and with a peace treaty that didn't end a war, it just delayed the next one. Because history doesn't repeat itself exactly, it just whispers. And Versailles was the whisper that became a roar. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the turning points that shaped the modern world, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around. There's so much more to uncover from the past that's still shaping our present. See you in the next one.